What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo coming back at you guys with yet another live duel commentary. So on the left we have Salamangreat, which a lot of people were counting out for the upcoming format, but here we are, Salamangreat apparently holding strong, going up against Orcust on the right here. Another deck that some people were not really too confident with the hit 2 Rusty Bardish. However, Orcust still has plenty of tricks up its sleeve, and I don't really think it's going anywhere. So we do see a normal summon of Scrapper Cycler that allows him to dump any of his machine monsters to the graveyard. Perfectly synergizes with the Orcust deck since all of them are machines. It allows you to play around cards like any of the hand traps in particular, just because you can dump your harp into the graveyard instantly if you have any extender. Ooh, but it doesn't look like he has the extender. He might be having to banish harp here manually. I guess that's another way you could technically go about it, but in most instances you would just have an extender to go with it, like say a danger, any monster you can special summon, and then have full combo with harp already in the grave to play around hand traps. But we see the harp get ashed, and that is one of the choke points of the deck, and now we get to see how Salamangreat does respond here. Circle kicking things off, getting met with an Ash Blossom from the Orcust player of his own, and that one of Salamangreat's Circle, you know, it's one of those cards that, you know, it's a nice one of, but obviously we do still wish it was 3, but it is now at 1 thanks to the Forbidden and Limited list. So we see a normal summon of Jack Jaguar, going to upgrade into that copy of Banlist here, and the Salamangreat player, depending on the composition of his hand, could potentially just go and try to win out here. We're going to see him get a copy of Salamangreat Sanctuary off of Banlist's effect. I think if he's kicking things off with the Jack Jaguar, it's probably not too likely he's going to kill him this turn. It looks like he's going to Reincarnation Link summon that that copy of Banlist, and that could indicate that he has something like, say, a Salamangreat Roar in his hand, and I think he does actually, but there's a will of the Salamangreat that's pretty good that will allow him to get one of his Salamangreat monsters back to the field. So he's going to get another copy of Banlist, and now he can go up into a Sunlight Wolf here that is going to just get 2 Banlists in the graveyard. He can use the copy of Jack Jaguar now to go ahead and recur it. Now he can go into a Heat Leo if he so desires, shuffle back that initial back row, but first he's going to use the effect of Sunlight Wolf to add Ash Blossom back to his hand. That's going to get met by Effect Veiler, so a lot of hand traps from the Orcust player here. This is another route that Orcust could potentially take, almost in a very similar vein to that of Salamangreat, where it can play a bunch of hand traps and kind of just play a more control style game rather than just trying to make this crazy board that we've typically come to expect from Orcust. While the players are playing this out, I do want to remind you guys that if you are in the Philadelphia area, August 17th and 18th is Pro Play Tour Philadelphia. It is a $2,000 prize pool tournament, only $20 to enter, and I will be there doing live stream commentary for the event. So check out the links in the description, and I hope to see you guys there. So we see Heat Leo come down. It's going to be met with Infinite Impermanence, which effectively does the same thing. I mean, it was going to get shuffled back into the deck regardless, and now we're going to see a set card from the Salamangreat player. He set up pretty nicely here. If he can keep or 2-card set, excuse me. If he can keep that Heat Leo on the board, he can Reincarnation Link summon it next turn. Then he could will the Salamangreat and get 3 monsters back from the grave. That could be a huge turn. We see another normal summon of Scrapper Cycler being met with a Salamangreat Roar. So that is going to go ahead and just force 1 set card being passed from the Orcust player. Not really much going on here. The Salamangreat player having full control of the game at this point. We see the Heat Leo being Reincarnation Link summon. He's going to shuffle back that back row. He's going to reset his copy of Roar, and now it possibly looks like we might see a concession here, because with the Orcust card, or excuse me, the Orcust player not having any cards left, not much he can really do, and we are going to game number 2. So as we saw there, Orcust did start things off, and it wants to go first like most decks do, but sometimes it can just be stopped dead in its tracks. So we're going to see if we can do something a little bit better in game 2. Side decks are in effect here, so now Orcust has to worry about Lancia coming down from the Salamangreat player. There's a lot. So normal summoning Scrapper Cycler, at least he's been consistently getting to that card every single time. Doesn't look like we have a hand trap from the Salamangreat player though, so the Orcust player is going to have the chance to go off and do his full combo. He's going to go ahead and send that Harp Horror to the graveyard, but he's actually going to banish it instantly for a copy of Nightmare. So that will give him the full Orcust combo. We're going to have to see what he does after this. Doesn't look like he has anything else too crazy in his hand there. I believe he hard drew the Crescendo, which I guess isn't terrible. That means he can search Babel with this Galatea, so that's okay. Having both of your 1-ups out of the deck is definitely nice, just so you don't have to choose one or the other. Looks like there's a copy of Twin Twister in his hand as well. That could be potentially devastating because Salamangreat does play a fair bit of back row. You can hit stuff like the Sanctuary to stop the Reincarnation Link summon. You can hit the back row. There's just a lot going on there. So now is the Orcust Nightmare targeting the Galatea. He's going to send the Wand to the graveyard with that effect. Wand, probably one of the solid one-ofs in the Orcust engine that you should include just because it is very powerful. He's going to use Wand's effect, banish it to re-special summon the Orcust Nightmare from the banish zone. And now he's going to shuffle back one of his banished cards through Galatea's effect to get a copy of Orcust Babel to his field because we already know he has the Crescendo. Typically in games 2 and 3, if you already, if you don't have either one, typically going for Crescendo is better because people do tend to side evenly match, and it's just more of a safer route to go. Game 1, Babel is more traditional just because you can end on the Topologic Bomber Dragon board, different things like that. But I think in games 2 and 3, getting to your Crescendo is more important than getting to your Babel. It all depends on the matchup, of course, and what else you can do with your hand, but we'll just have to see. So he uses Dingirsu, gets the Harp back, and now we're going to see a second copy of Galatea here. And it looks like there's also an Ash Blossom in his hand. So this player might be playing the more hand trap focused variant of Orcust, opting not to, go into something like Bomber Dragon, even though he does have the copy of Babel on the field, which would allow him to just have multiple board wipes. However, having Babel with a Harp engraved means he can still resurrect. He can do a lot of different things here, so it's perfectly fine. We see during the draw or standby phase, Galatea is going to use its effect, so he's going to shuffle something back here. And it looks like, it looks like he used Nightmare's effect, excuse me. So Nightmare sent a copy of Symbol Skeleton directly from deck to grave. And now that's ready to go ahead and trigger. With Babel, he can banish the Symbol Skeleton to resurrect something like Dingirsu at any given point. We see Salamangreat Circle open again from the Salamangreat player, but that's going to be met by Ash. So that's a pretty big hit here. We'll have to see if the Salamangreat player has the resources to recover. Not too much going on there. There is a Signet Mining, though. That's a good call. Pitching Foxy. Foxy can resurrect itself if he does have another card to pitch for its effect, but having that Signet Mining is huge. That is going to be met with the Crescendo, though, since the Orcust player does control an Orcust Link monster, so that's a pretty significant minus there. That Signet Mining will be banished. I don't think that's too relevant, but you never know. I don't think we're playing Magician of Faith in Salamangreat anytime soon, but, you always want to make sure your cards go where they are supposed to. So it looks like he's going to use the effect of Foxy. He does, there is an Orcust Babel on the field, so that Foxy can use its effect. And it looks like the Salamangreat player might use a response here. So it looks like he might be using Symbol Skeleton as Chain Link 2, targeting the Dingirsu. And I think that chain will resolve. Not really. He still has a Harp in the grave, so he could use that effect as well. And potentially, oh wow, it looks like he might be going for a bigger chain here. So it looks like he's going to be banishing the Harp Horror 2 to special summon a monster as well. So we have a pretty big chain resolving here. So Harp Horror is going to summon Nightmare from the deck. Then Symbol Skeleton, oh no, he's going to use Galatea. So Galatea is going to shuffle back, get him another Crescendo. So this player plays 2 Crescendos, interestingly enough. Again, definitely favoring that more control style of Orcust, playing a lot of the hand traps. Symbol Skeleton's going to summon the Dingirsu. And then we're going to have to see what monster is going to be discarded for the effect of Foxy at the end of this 4-chain link. He's going to pitch a Spinny. That's a good one. But however, the Dingirsu now will get to resolve in a separate chain. Foxy will be popping the Babel. That's why he used all those effects, because he wasn't going to be able to, since they would be no longer quick effects. And now he's going to use the effect of Dingirsu to either add a material to it or send one of the cards to the graveyard. So this is interesting because obviously you want to keep your engine going and make sure you have access to your Symbol Skeleton at all times. However, there is some merit to sending that Foxy to the grave just because he has the Spinny, so he has access to Mirage Stalio. And yeah, it's hard to say for sure. Salamangreat player just checking out the graveyard, and he is going to send with Dingirsu's effect. So now Foxy is no longer on the field. He has another Spinny in his hand. Oh my god. So that means he now can go ahead and make a Balinx. Balinx can get Sanctuary. It's going to be tough here, but he does have that Super Poly in his hand. So maybe he's going to opt to just Super Poly away here. He does have the potential. He's going to go ahead and resurrect that Spinny. And now he's going to go ahead and make a Hita. Oh, yes, there is an Ash Blossom in the Orcust player's graveyard. So now he can go ahead and use that Hita's effect, resurrect that Ash Blossom, link off, and just go directly into a Heatleo. There's Heatleo. He's going to shuffle away the back row. He does not know. He already knows that the Crescendo is set in the back row. Not something he has to worry about right now, but it will be turned online for the Orcust player's next turn if he gets one. Now this is tough, because if he had one more card in his hand, he could use that Sanctuary, Reincarnation, Link Summon, shuffle away the Crescendo, and then he would have the ability to reduce the attack of one of the Orcust monsters with Heatleo's secondary ability when it's Reincarnation, Link Summon. Then he could just Super Poly for a Violet Chimera and probably just win this game outright, but he's missing one card. If one of those cards was able to go through, he would actually be in a pretty good position here. But now it looks like the Salamangreat player is going to try to contemplate the best way to go about doing this. Again, Super Poly, just one of those cards this format that is incredibly powerful, allowing you to just, I don't want to say break the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's a card that's incredibly difficult to play around, because when you're playing your deck naturally, it's just something that you have to, figure out. And it looks like the Salamangreat player might be scooping. Yeah, he is. Okay, so we're going to game 3, 1-1 for both of these players here. But it's going to show that Salamangreat, even with its consistency hits, is still able to compete in this July 2019 format. So definitely don't count out Salamangreat anytime soon here. So we see a Signet Mining pitching Roar, one of the better targets because you can just get it back. He's going to go ahead and get Gazelle. Normal summon Gazelle. We might see a pitch of Spinny. Yes, we will. And that is going to go ahead and prompt the Spinny to get special summoned and Xyz summon up into a Mirage Stallia. We saw a Sunlight Wolf there. It looks like he's getting a little bit ahead of himself, but the Salamangreat player already knows the path he wants to take. This is the first time the Salamangreat player does get to go first here. Summons the Jack Jaguar, links immediately into Sunlight Wolf. He's going to go ahead and summon Jack Jaguar to that zone that will trigger to get Gazelle back into the hand via Sunlight Wolf's effect. And now he's going to go ahead and get to Baylynx. He's going to go ahead and make another Sunlight Wolf. That will allow him to add the Roar back to his hand, which means he can then set it to his field. And that's a pretty solid turn. You've got Baylynx engraved, Sunlight Wolf on the field, ready to use its effects again on the next turn. And we know he has at least a Roar, so one of those cards in the back row is presumably a Roar, and then he's got one other one as well. So that could be anything. It could be Impermanence. We know he plays Super Poly, so there could be that. Definitely a few things to consider. We don't know if the Orcust player knows whether or not the Salamangreat player is playing Super Poly prior to this match, but it's something that, again, could be a massive blowout. Pankratops coming down for the Orcust player is pretty significant here. That's always a nice card. And there's a Sangan. Remember, Sangan is one of those possible new inclusions to go into your full Orcust combo, since you can immediately link it off into Almirage, which the Orcust player is going to do. He can then go ahead and add a Crusadia Arborea, most likely, from his deck to his hand through Sangan's effect. And since it is not an effect, it's actually a summoning condition, he can just immediately special summon it and then have his full combo. Nice little inclusion. Again, it has its weaknesses as well, just as anything does, but it's a nice way to get your full combo with just a single card. And Sangan to 3 does allow this, Sangan being at 3 does allow this to be possible. So he's going to grab Arborea. Arborea is typically the target of choice because it is a tuner, so there's some instances where you can make stuff like Borreload Savage Dragon, or just any other synchro for the most part, but that's typically the one that players play. I know in the OCG they have Needle Fiber, so that's one of the reasons why that's also played. So that's a little bit different, but again, it could matter. Any of the Crusadias have that same summoning condition, so you could play any of them if you so wish. Reclusia could not be bad either, in case you, actually no, because you're summoning it off Sangan, or you're searching it off of Sangan, so you can't use the effects for the turn anyway. So you might as well just take the one that is a tuner, because that's something that you could take advantage of if you absolutely wanted to. So now we see that he might go with his full Orcust combo here. He does have a Harp Horror in hand, so if he goes ahead and pitches that for the effect of his Phoenix, which looks like he's going to target one of the back row here, the one closest to the Salamangreat player's deck. Now this might just prompt a Roar to come out, because then you take out the Phoenix. However, I mean, if he has a way to keep comboing off, it could be a little bit difficult. Pankratops could just take out the other back row and make it tough. There's an effect Veiler on the Phoenix, but there's a Called by the Grave in response to the Veiler. So now you can't use Roar on the Phoenix effect. So if that's a set Roar there, this could be pretty rough. Obviously, the Salamangreat player wanting to save Roar for something a little bit more impactful and hoping that Effect Veiler would stick, but this could be a huge turning point for the game here, depending on what that back row card is. Now, he could use Roar to negate the Call by the Grave, so then pretty much everything would resolve as normal. So I think at this point, the Salamangreat players are deliberating. But I think he was really hoping that Effect Veiler would stick on that Phoenix. And, oh, maybe the Roar is actually the far left card from the Salamangreat player's perspective. He's thinking about it. It really depends on what that other card could be, because again, we know the Roar is back there. It depends on how much he values whatever the other unknown card to us is. The Salamangreat player is pretty stocked for next turn. And if he can just stop the combo from Orcust for going off, being able to deal with a Pankratops isn't too bad. So there's the Roar. So Roar on the Call by the Grave negates it, so Veiler will resolve, and that will negate Phoenix's effect. The only merit to using the Roar on the Phoenix is that he no longer has the monsters to be able to go into Orcust combo. Now we're going to see a... Oh, wow, so the set card was a Rage. The Orcust player used his Pankratops to tribute itself off to pop the other set card, but Rage can now go ahead and pop Phoenix. So essentially it ended out the same way. And now the Salamangreat player has, you know, he basically has his Sunlight Wolf still there, but now he's out of disruptions. The Orcust player does have a Harp Horror in the grave, though, so it's not completely out of this, but definitely with only a couple cards left in hand, he's definitely dwindling on his resources here. Looks like it's only 2 cards in hand. I think both of those are unknown to us at this point. Looks like there was a monster and a spell. And the Orcust player just considering his options here, what he's got. And let's see. Wow, it looks like he's just setting 1 and passing. So that was enough. The Salamangreat player was able to play through all of those different cards, and now he has the ability to easily run away with this because he has so many resources stocked in the graveyard. I mean, he's got a Jack Jaguar, he's got a Spinny, Sunlight Wolf can use both of its effects. He has the Gazelle that we know that he re-added from the first turn, just doing the initial combo. He has Sanctuary in hand. So at this point, I mean, you probably just have to worry about taking out the back row, just so you have all the unknowns taken care of. There could be an unknown threat in the hand, but at this point, I think the Salamangreat player is in a very, very strong position to win this game. Orcust Nightmare does have 2,000 defense. I mean, that shouldn't be too difficult to deal with, but I mean, it is something to consider. So Sunlight Wolf used its effect to add back a copy of Rage to hand. And so now it looks like the players might just be discussing possibly some of the interactions with Sangan and the Crusadia cards, as we discussed earlier. Not exactly sure, but looks like Gazelle is going to come down now. And there's an Ash Blossom. Okay, so Ash will slow down the Salamangreat player just a little bit, but I think he's going to have plenty of resources to play through regardless. It is a -1, but he does kind of just stop things from snowballing out of control here. He can make a Mirage Stallion. Mirage Stallion can grab something like Falco. Then he can just go ahead and like bounce the Nightmare back to hand. He's got so many options at his disposal now. It's ridiculous. There's a Call by the Grave. Call by the Grave is going to hit the Gazelle. And now he's going to go ahead and search for that Mirage Stallion's effect. Interesting that he opted to choose the Gazelle for the target for Call by the Grave. Just because you could stop something like Jack Jaguar. Gazelle's not really going to do... I mean, I guess if there is any hope for the Orcust player to come back, Gazelle probably has to be dealt with. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like you've got so much to worry about. It might just be out of your hands regardless. But this is looking pretty strong. So Mirage Stallion did summon the Falco as I predicted. Now he's going to link off into most likely the... oh, another Sunlight Wolf. Okay, so that will allow him to bounce the Mirage Stallion with the effect of... or excuse me, he's going to bounce the Nightmare with the effect of Mirage Stallion. Now he can resurrect the Jack Jaguar. Now we can go ahead and... use the effect of the Sunlight Wolf to add the Spinny back to hand. And again, he's just got full control of the game at this point. I mean, he's got the Rage back in hand to pretty much deal with anything the Orcust player could have. It's not an OTK, but he's got full control, so it's very difficult here to see anything other than a GG. It's going to be 3,600 damage coming in from both the Sunlight Wolf and the Jack Jaguar. Now we're going to see an Abyss Dweller, and if there's anything to lock this game up, it's going to be Abyss Dweller, that's for sure. So now we see another reincarnation summon of Sunlight Wolf that will prompt the Roar, and then the Rage being set as well. Yeah, there is probably no two combinations of cards that are going to result in anything other than a win from the Salamangreat player here. We'll have to see. I mean, I could be wrong, but we see Dweller being used immediately just so no shenanigans can take place. There's a copy of Engage, but I mean, you can just Roar that because you know what his card is in hand, and that's going to do it. Salamangreat takes it, still going strong in July 2019. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.